And blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning on KIDO Talk Radio. It's time once again to win Kevin Miller's cash. All you have to do is listen all day as we really like, but listen to my show, 6 a.m. and 8 a.m. We'll give you the code words. The more code words you have, the more your chances increase to win up to $5,000. And listen at 3 p.m. during the Sean Hannity Show. More details at KIDOTalkRadio.com. And since we're celebrating the Boise Albertsons Open, Cheap Trick coming to town, we are giving away passes to see Cheap Trick, weekly passes here to the Albertsons Boise Open. This is our last weekly passes, so we have 5 to give away, a family 5-pack, a friendly 5-pack, so you and 5 friends. When you hear the Cheap Trick, be caller 7 at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, and you could win these passes. Very, very exciting. Not as exciting as our number one power ranking guest, newsmaker, David Bozell of ForAmerica.org. He would be the Texas A&M of our guest pool, the most profitable, the most valuable guest we have. Of course, if you're a college football fan, Forbes just listed Texas A&M as the most profitable college athletics team of the year. But anyway, good morning, sir.
Good morning. What's that famous line from Cheap Trick? I want you to want me.
Well, we are living in different times now, aren't we?
That's right. How are you guys?
Not bad. Living the dream here. So last week I was in the swamp hanging out, thinking of you.
I saw some of those, your Twitter feed. Yeah, I saw it. It was cool.
Well, with all the humidity and such. And, I'm going to make it easy for you. Let's just go to the greatest hits of last week. Do we have that ready for us? Let's see if here we go.
Bring the charges. This is about the closest I'll probably ever have in my life to an I am Spartacus moment.
How about that? Cory Booker, ding, ding, ding. I don't know how we describe the insanity that was last week, David.
Someone's running for president for the Democrats in 2020. I mean, you can sort of spot them all last week. Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, throw a little Tim Kaine in there, sprinkle Tim Kaine. So those guys, they're all running. They're all trying to out left wing one another. And because they understand that the fundraising, the activism, the energy is going to come for their side anyways, is just going to come from the most radical among them. And so they're just trying to out radical one another, and try to go viral at every opportunity in these big moments. And the Kavanaugh hearing was the latest, opportunity for them.
Well, look,
but it's not going to work. Kavanaugh's going to get confirmed, and it's a bunch of drama. And
now wait a minute, David Bozell, before you start rambling here. My sense is to get you fired up here and to, provoke you. They can't do as much as being viral as good old Maxine.
No, I mean, yeah, they haven't gone as far as Maxine has gone, which is basically threaten everyone's life.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. She's got a list. Yes.
Right. If you visit the White House as a tourist, off with your head. It's that kind of rhetoric. It's really wild to see. It's really wild to see polls showing, and it goes to show you how the Republicans in Congress have really kind of fumbled their opportunities, because there's just no reason on God's green earth why Democrats should be outpolling Republicans in a generic ballot, 10, 12, 14. I saw the latest poll yesterday was 16 points. They have nothing to run on but threats. That's all they've been doing for the past, couple of months, is just threatening anybody who might agree with the Trump agenda. But that's more because Republicans in Congress have kind of just fumbled these opportunities, haven't given a reason to say to the voter, like, we deserve to be back there. Now, I do think there is a kind of and just like in 2016, an undercounted, almost not counted, sort of pro-Trump vote in these polls, that where these midterms are going to be. These midterms are going to be extraordinarily close. I mean, you're talking about wherever the majority hit lands in the House, I think it's just going to be single digits. Could be that close. So,
well, of course they're not going to. They're going to try and suppress the vote.
Well, sure.
The libs.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, it's midterms are base elections. So the left wing is so fired up. Their base is so fired up. The get out the vote operations for the Republican Party need to be at the top of their game. God knows they're raising enough money. I mean, I saw a stat the other day, Kevin. There's going to be over $1 billion spent in this year's midterms. $1 billion of the B. For midterm elections, that would be the highest for a non-presidential midterm year by like 36%. Going back to 2014, just an extraordinary amount of money being spent on these things. But like I said, I think it's going to be single-digit margins across the board because we're a divided country, and that's just the reality. And we'll move on to the next one.
Speaking of which, go to foramerica.org, David Bozell's website. Before we get to, because this is a show that's, and you're going, I do a ton of shows, they're all different, but we kind of veer a little towards the faith on our show, and do want to get into the latest, and we did the last time we had you on concerning now the Pope saying the devil made these guys do it. We're going to get to that, and then people saying the Pope isn't a socialist, but how this impacts non-Catholics and Catholics, the story that continues to evolve. But before we get to that, at KIDO Talk Radio, the Kaepernick ad backlash. On one hand, you have people burning their Nikes and saying they're going to boycott Nikes, and then the craziest thing seems to happen. Nike stock dipped. Now it's up. Their sales are up. Is this the sign of the apocalypse for all good, God-fearing Americans? David Bozell.
No, I don't think so. Because we had one of our most successful communications of the year on Facebook. We had like 16, 17 million eyeballs on. We had a post that suggested, to Nike, what real sacrifice is. Nike's ad about Colin Kaepernick suggested that he had made this tremendous sacrifice, kneeling. And, we just juxtaposed that with a picture of Arlington Cemetery, that this is what real sacrifice is. It's not this, no talent backup quarterback, sitting behind the bench kneeling. That's not sacrifice. Nike made, let's just put my objective glasses on for a second, unbiased glasses. Nike made a pretty bold call, and I think they're going to benefit from it in this way, the following way. These shoe companies, these apparel companies, it is a war for athlete contracts. Year over year, the newest, youngest, hottest athlete coming on, pick whatever sport. That's going to get an athlete's attention in a positive way for them, for their point of view. They're going to win over athletes. On top of that, why does their stock go up? Because they're hooked into some of the biggest influencers in the world. Serena Williams, LeBron James. I mean, we like to tout, in conservative politics, conservative media space, the millions of people that we're reaching. These guys snap their fingers and they're reaching tens of millions across the world. Tens of millions. So that's just goes to show you that we still have, while conservatism, I think, is one of the reasons why we're being threatened on social media, dominates social media, certainly dominates talk radio, and it certainly dominates cable news. There's still inroads to be made within the cultural space because you've got guys, frankly, some ill-informed influencers like LeBron James who can snap their fingers and reach tens of millions of people on a dime. That's why Nike turned around and succeeded in the end.
Well, don't disagree with Serena
them.
On the tennis court, buddy. She's never wrong.
No, you do not pick a fight with Serena. That was kind of surreal.
I'd say.
Watching that live, I felt bad. I kind of knew she was. You're kind of right. I mean, I've called referees worse in my sporting days. Yeah, I've certainly called refs worse. But yeah, that was a little too much. And the poor girl who beat her, she's totally stole the spotlight from that poor girl. So hopefully,
well, the Williams sisters have a bad reputation, and not like I'm Mr. Tennis, but It's not like they're good sports to begin with. They're incredibly talented, incredibly successful, but
Right.
they're very competitive. Okay, out of the sports world into the spiritual world. We talked about this last hour. The Pope Francis, saying that the devil is at work. And you're thinking to yourself, okay, Pope Francis, they made a movie, detailing how the Boston Globe broke the whole scandal called Spotlight. The church was supposed to reform this. We had a Law and Order Pope Benedict. All of a sudden he was sick, but he's still alive. It's kind of like in radio when they say we're going to put you on the internet and take you off the air. And then we have Pope Francis here, who's supposed to be this reformer, transparency, live the life of the poor person. He's not a socialist. And yet, the cover-ups continue.
I don't understand the line of defense by the Holy Father. The idea that you would consider this to be, he said that Satan, the great accuser. What would he call a climate change denier, a global warming denier, like myself? This Pope is willing to comment on just about he's commented on immigration policy, he's commented on global warming.
Commented on
President Trump, all of these sort of the hot button political issues of our time, but it took him like 3 weeks to say one word about this scandal, and the only thing he's been able to come up with is to blame Satan, while bishops who are in the report, who have admitted to making mistakes, who have and good on them, asked for forgiveness for those mistakes, are en route to the Vatican as we speak to go meet with the Holy Father, who has basically absolved them. This is not going to go away. Someone likened it I was watching the Today Show, speaking of hyperbole, someone likened it to the 9/11 for the Catholic Church. I didn't really understand that comment, but that's the Today Show for you. It's one of those deals, Kevin, where I hope the Holy Father, someone grabs him by the vestments and says, "You got to snap out of this. You've got to rise above whatever it is that you think has caused this. It's 10 times worse." And so, as Catholics, as lay Catholics, we have to pray for that result and be more active. And we spoke about this a couple weeks ago, and be more active within our local churches, because it's clear that these priests, bishops, and archbishops are making mistakes, repeated mistakes, time and time again, that we as lay Catholics cannot afford to tolerate any longer.
Agreed. And it's funny, I've covered David Zubik for years, that beloved in Pittsburgh, formerly of Green Bay, but he's not handling the situation well. And, here's the deal. This is not just a Catholic thing, but there's a level of trust, whether it's your pastor, your priest, your rabbi. And when that trust is betrayed, it's a crisis of faith. And, George Stephanopoulos, David, the other day was talking to Bishop Zubik, and he said, according to the court documents, you made a settlement. You agreed to pay this person's tuition, and they had to sign a thing never to talk about it again, as if it didn't happen. And then Zubik gave the non-acknowledgement that happened, and you're thinking, this, David Zubik, you weren't responsible for this, but to treat this victim like begrudgingly you're going to do this in the settlement, personally defeats the purpose.
Right. And George is absolutely right to bring that up. And there are cases like that are popping up all over the country. Settlements that are head scratchers, and that sort of fuel the arrogance of some of these priests and bishops. That they can get away with it. And so it's almost like I liken it to Google, for example, was supposed to show up to a House hearing last week, and they said no, we're not coming.
Right.
It's arrogance. It's that's how it goes to show you how much they did not fear the Republican Party, the House Republicans who were in charge. Same type of thing, but I think more serious. These bishops, priests who are trying to settle these cases, they don't fear law enforcement. They don't fear reprisal from their higher-ups. That's got to change.
David Bozell, ForAmerica.org. Appreciate having you back, brother.
Thanks, Kevin. Anytime, guys. Take it easy.
All right, our great friend David Bozell, 580-5436. Remember, caller number 7. Cheap Trick tickets when you hear Cheap Trick. And weekly passes to the Albertsons Boise Open presented by Hershey, Albertsons, Web.com tour. So you want to see some great golf and some great rock and roll. Listen to KIDO Talk Radio for your chance to win 107.5 FM, 580 AM. The Kevin Miller Show, KIDO Talk Radio. Blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Thank you all for joining us. Don't forget, it's time to win Kevin Miller's Cash again. Listen at 6 a.m. and 8 a.m. to the Kevin Miller Show and 3 p.m. to the Sean Hannity Show. When you hear the Kevin Miller Cash code word, log that in at KIDOTalkRadio.com. The more words you get, the more chances you have to win up to $5,000. That's right. Up to $5,000. Got a little unruly in the ACHD meetings on apparently some alleged violations by a commissioner. And coming up, we're going to prove that mob rule is not unique to the Supreme Court. But first, KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. We get you to work safely and on time. We like to call it
Jim Jiffy.
All right, Jim. Appreciate you filling in for Larry. So this is from the Statesman. It got a little irate yesterday in the ACHD meetings, and you got to be pretty hardcore to get fired up over an ACHD meeting. But, I mean, they do control the road, so let's take a listen, courtesy of the Idaho Statesman. Okay, let's see. Apparently, the sound isn't there. Do we have the sound on that? Let's try it again here at KIDO Talk Radio. No sound there. All right. Well, we'll get to that, hopefully. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. And usually when that happens, I don't have the right buttons pushed, but Ray's got his buttons pushed. I've got my buttons pushed. Wanted to make sure that we were good to go. All right. To my mom, sorry you can't win the Cheap Trick tickets, but we appreciate you listening east of the Great River. What we are talking about, though, is the comments made by Pope Francis, essentially saying that Satan is attacking the church. And during a mass in Casa Santa Marta last week, the Pope Francis told bishops the great accuser is trying to make scandals out of the Catholic Church by uncovering their sins. To combat the great accuser's uncovering of the sins, the Vatican News reports, the Pope urged the bishops to remember 3 crucial things: to be men of prayer, remain close to the people, and have the humility to remember they were chosen by God. I think another thing, and David Bozell brought this up, the Pope can comment on the president, he can comment on climate change. The Pope needs to comment on the bad bishops, the bad priests doing the bad things. It makes everyone. And look, the Catholic Church is the largest church in the country. It makes everybody of that faith feel bad. It makes people that want to consider that faith feel bad. We've had non-Catholics calling in saying, I used to be in the church, but I've left because of this or because of something else. You know, faith is what we are all about if we are a believer in Christ, in God, right? When something bad happens, even if it's painful, you've got to attack it. You got to take care of it. You've got to stop it. To Sam in Boise, quickly before the news at KIDO Talk Radio with Kevin Miller. Good morning, Sam.
I don't know how quick I can be. I need to tell you about something that happened in late 80s. My middle son wanted to get a driver's license, and he had long hair. And I wouldn't sign for him to get a driver's license if he wasn't going to cut his hair. So about 2 weeks go by, and he comes up to me after Mass one Sunday and said, hey, Pop, Jesus had long hair. And I said, yeah, well, Jesus walked everywhere he went too, bud. And it's kind of like the same thing that's going on now. You know, if they want something to change, well, then they got to change. They can't keep on with the same old stuff that's been going on throughout the history of the Roman Catholic Church. Just look at Innocent, Gregory, all the incest and corruption in the church that's been going on since Peter all the way to Francis. Put these guys in sackcloth. Take away those expensive cars and those Gucci suits. See if things don't change, and you only get priests that want to be priests and serve God.
Quick, effective, to the point, Sam. Thank you.
You bet.
Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Doug.
Good morning, Kevin.
Blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Coming up this half hour between now and 8 o'clock, your chance to win daily passes to see the Albertsons of Boise Open, which starts today at Hillcrest Country Club, and you can use your daily pass to go Friday night to see Cheap Trick. When you hear the Cheap Trick song, one of them, be caller 8 at 580-5436, 580-KIDO for your chance to win. And just our way of thanking you for joining us here each and every morning on 107.5 FM, 580 AM. If you're just waking up, we're talking a little bit about, well, what Pope Francis has said, and basically that the bishops need to be afraid of the devil, calling him the great accuser, and that bishops need to be remember three things: men of prayer, remain close to the people, and have the humility to remember they were chosen by God. And he continues to go on and on about this, but you know, the Pope has been very outspoken on political matters, more than any other of his predecessors, which begs the question at 580-KIDO, 580-5436, why aren't these people in charge stopping these things? And it makes all people of faith, all people that believe in God, that get made fun of by the secularists, that get made fun of by the comedians, that get made fun of by the people of non-faith. It makes everyone look bad. And to the good people that I pray for each and every night, and to our fellow sinners, you know, this is why it's important not to be a hypocrite. You know, we are so blessed to be able to profile people of faith, and I really appreciate when people compliment this program and the work that we do here, but it pales in comparison to the good works that are going on each and every day. You know, we're a landlocked island here in the Treasure Valley. You want to go somewhere, it's 5 hours this way, 5 hours that way, right? That's why it's so important to just recognize the goodness, and we'll talk more about that. But I was getting carried away. I didn't know we had our number one political analyst joining us, our so-called political expert, tongue-in-cheek. Tanya J. Powers joining us from Fox News Radio on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning.
Good morning.
Heaven forbid that I would ever forget you.
I appreciate that, so I can do my political analyzing on your radio station.
Right, and we're talking about tobacco. We're politically analyzing the vape versus the cigs.
Well, actually, it's not so much analysis. It is just kind of straight-up reporting, which is what I'm actually better at anyway. So, sir.
There you go again. Yes.
I know what you're up to. The FDA, in all seriousness, has issued a warning, and they say, the e-cigarettes, which is, the vaping, and they're known as several brand names. One of them is Juul. There's other ones, but what they're saying is that, there are a lot of teenagers, underage people who are using this product, and they are calling it an epidemic. They're saying that, this is, quite a bit more than a lot of people may have thought were using this product. They say that, it does contain nicotine, and that it is harmful to underage brains because they're still developing. So they're saying, this has got to stop, and they are putting the onus on these manufacturers. They've given the 5 largest e-cigarette manufacturers 60 days to come up with plans and tell them what they are to stop underage use of their products. These 5 companies sell about 97% of the e-cigarettes that are sold. It boils down to literally this handful of manufacturers. And the FDA says, and that there's a little more teeth to this than just, oh, you better stop, They're saying that they could block sales of the products by enforcing a requirement that the companies provide detailed health data about the products before they market them. Right now, this is just a, words kind of thing. But they are sounding the alarm and saying, look, this is reaching epidemic proportions. There's a lot of people doing this. It's very dangerous to them. And they're trying to make sure people understand the health risks.
Well, let's face it. I mean, if you're doing the vaping, you're still ingesting the nicotine, and some people are ingesting more of the vaping than they were before of the cigs.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of people didn't, the way these were first positioned, branded, manufactured, they were kind of positioned as a less dangerous alternative to regular cigarettes. And what they're trying to explain is, especially when it comes to underage people, no, it's really not less dangerous. A lot of people think, oh, well, they're okay. These are healthier than the other ones because you don't have the, all the smoke that you would have with a cigarette, and they come in fruit flavors, and anything with mango has got to be good, right? And so that's kind of one of the things they're trying to dispel, the notion that this is not dangerous in some way.
Kind of reminds you of the early days of the cigarette industry.
Right, it does, because remember, those were touted as having health benefits?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm recently watching Mad Men, and all they do is smoke cigarettes.
Yeah. Yeah, the Lucky Strike folks apparently were quite the client for them.
They were until they got rid of them, like a lot of things,
Mm-hmm.
So, our thoughts and prayers, obviously, to the people facing the hurricane. Of course, you were in Memphis, so you were more of a tornado than a hurricane person, except I guess when Katrina came up there.
Well, even when Gordon came up through, hit the Gulf Coast and came up through Mississippi recently, they continue to have, the rain just pounds up through the state, even up as far as Memphis. So they continue to get rain from it, but it's not a hurricane by the time it gets there. It is quite different, obviously, because you don't have as much wind. But, yeah, the tornadoes that we got are definitely one of those things that, it makes you remember just how strong Mother Nature is when you see stuff like tornadoes and hurricanes. And this one is huge. I hope everybody's paying attention to what's going on, especially, in the Carolinas. It's going to be potentially very bad.
Yeah, it's interesting when people say this could be the biggest ever, and I'm thinking, I thought Katrina was the biggest ever.
Yeah, if that's the measuring stick,
right,
then yeah, that's a problem. I mean, I realize it was downgraded in as far as the number to a 2 last night, and everybody says, well, Katrina was a 5, I think.
Yeah, 5.
It was much bigger, but they're still, even though they've the number has changed a little bit, it still isn't like, oh, well, you can ignore this now. Everything's just going to be rain. Everything's going to be fine. They're worried about that extremely large storm surge that's going to come along with it, and it's going to dump a whole lot of water on there.
Right, and a lot of us don't think that water's a big deal, but I was watching the Weather Channel last night, and they were actually showing physically what 9 feet of water looks like. Anyway, our thoughts and prayers go out to those folks getting ready for Hurricane Florence. Tanya J. Powers, we appreciate you.
Anytime.
Thank you for the analysis, reporting.
No problem.
All right. Thank you, Tanya J. Powers. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Before we get back to this idea of faith and freedom and such, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, you remember her, RBG. In fact, I don't want to say I was accosted, but because everybody, you know why I say that? Because everybody's a victim these days. I see something offensive, I'm accosted, right? So I'm in the hallway of the broadcast center, and somebody's going by with RBG, original OG. Whatever happened to just, having complete sentences or complete words? So, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the original gangster, right? Of course, the people wearing these shirts, do they really even know about Ruth Bader Ginsburg? Maybe they do. So anyway, it's kind of a point between myself and a coworker. I go, wow, that's pretty strong. So Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who many people believe, including myself, that it's time for her to go on the Supreme Court, decided to make some commentary. Now, traditionally, when you're a conservative, except for Scalia, on the Supreme Court, you don't say anything. You mind your own business, right? But Ruth Bader Ginsburg decided to sound off on the nomination process.
A highly partisan show. The way it was right. The way it is wrong.
Right. I really want her judging my Supreme Court cases, but that's my own personal bias. At 580-5436, 580-KIDO, and we've covered this ad nauseum, when the libs have somebody there, and let's face it, Elena Kagan, Sotomayor, are not as qualified, do not have the legal background of Alito, of Roberts, of, let's see, of who else? Of Kavanaugh, of Gorsuch. They go through with 95% of the votes, 95 votes. Us, we don't. We play fair, which is absurd. By the way, I forgot to congratulate Henry and Caldwell for winning the Cheap Trick tickets. Thank you, Henry, for listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Keep it here for your chance to win. Well, they're Albertsons Boise Open tickets, but you can use them to see Cheap Trick as well. We've got daily passes to give away. When you hear a Cheap Trick song, be caller number 8 between now and 8 o'clock. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. When you hear a crisis of faith, what impact does it have on you? That's next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO.
This after a grand jury investigation in Pennsylvania found more than 1,000 cases and subsequent investigations in various states. Father Gerald Murray, Holy Family Church in New York City.
I'm glad he's doing it because the whole church needs to look at how we're handling cases of sexual abuse and abuse of authority by bishops.
The Pope has another meeting Thursday with the head of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, Cardinal Daniel DiNardo. He wants Pope Francis to authorize a full-fledged investigation into disgraced ex-Cardinal Theodore McCarrick, who resigned in July after allegations that he groped a teenager. DiNardo says questions about possible cover-ups by the Pope and others deserve answers. In New York, Lauren Green, Fox News.
Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. So here we are talking about faith and talking about morality and talking about ethics. And we're giving away Cheap Trick tickets, all that, every spectrum here, right? Or actually, Albertsons Boise Open tickets with Cheap Trick for Friday night. However, you know, whether you're a member of the Church of Rome, you're a member of the Eastern Church, Protestant, Jewish, whatever, there's a code that we all live by. And maybe you're a person that's not religious, you're spiritual, whatever that means. But you have these folks that are, you know, they set themselves up. You have a lot of people, remember Jim Baker, if not, Google him, in the evangelical community. You have a lot of people that are conservative pundits, conservative Republicans that will get up and espouse things, and then maybe they go swing from the chandeliers, maybe they cheat on their spouses. And this was a conversation I was having with a few folks last week in D.C., and going, how in the world, if you're supposed to be espousing conservative values, if you're supposed to be a good role model, can you be doing these things? Yes, we're all human. Yes, we all have temptations and such. But to be committing adultery or molesting children? Take a look at the head of CBS, Les Moonves. Okay, here's a guy that left his first wife for his second wife, was one of the most powerful men in television, in media. Brought CBS back from worst to first. And what did he do? You have Rowan Farrell, the New Yorker, and others, and the Me Too movement documenting these horrendous alleged actions of Mr. Moonves in the secular world. At 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Congratulations to Rick in Nampa for winning our 4-pack daily passes to the Albertsons Boise Open featuring Cheap Trick. Coming up next hour, we have some more passes to give away. But think about this in our own communities. Yes, it is to sin. Yes, it is to be forgiven, and we move on. But here you have these people in a powerful position. You would think that they would have learned from what happened when the crimes were first revealed. And what I don't understand, and this is a conversation that happened when they were making the settlements, just because somebody gets $1 million or $2 million or a lesser settlement does not make the crime go away, does not make the harm go away, does not make the trauma go away, right? And this is very different. This is not your traditional talk radio show where it's Paula cover that. But again, you take a look at our society today and we have, people elevating promiscuity, elevating inappropriate behavior, speaking in incivility to others. So this, we like to think, is your oasis. So I think about the good people that do good works, that work for charities, that volunteer for charities, that save lives, that make a difference. St. Vincent de Paul, the Boise Rescue Mission, Meridian Canine Rescue, Camp Rainbow Gold. And that's what inspires me. And I hope their actions inspire you. And then you have other people that are in these elevated positions that because of their positions, they're given respect and they don't do the right thing. Sometimes you have to go down with the ship. To quote the great Peter Parker, with great power comes great responsibility. And how many of us, look, we're not even talking about the religious world. Look at Penn State and Jerry Sandusky. What is it, Mike McCurry, Mike Malarkey, one of the two, Mike McCurry, I believe. Maybe somebody else, the redheaded guy, he was an assistant coach. He saw Sandusky doing things to a little boy. He went to Paterno. Paterno didn't do anything. And they let it go. How can you live with yourself? And if you're a person that gets up before the flock every day and espouses the gospel, how in the world can you compartmentalize either knowing or doing bad things that are crimes against nature, against society, against children? And how can an institution, any institution, come in with their lawyers, their godless lawyers, and say, well, it's just the law. It's just how it is. And this is your settlement. Sign the NDA, the non-disclosure agreement, and move on with your life and take your pittance based on the trauma that you received. That's not following Christ's way, is it? Traffic and weather together. Kevin Miller in the morning. Thank you, Jim. Kevin Miller in the morning here, KIDO Talk Radio. Don't forget your chance to win. Coming up very soon, we're going to give away tickets to see the Boise Open and Cheap Trick. And it's time once again for Win Kevin Miller's Money. Details on KIDOTalkRadio.com. We're just getting started. Fox News next on 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Your home for Fox News on the radio in the Treasure Valley. KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning.